Good afternoon on what is a bright, clear and breezy day. It is Wednesday, February 23rd. I'm back in the reading nook with an interesting parcel, a bit of a rattle to it, and of course a nice hot cup of tea. And if you hold on one moment, come on then, with a cat who is not ours. Here he is. Okay, as you can see, he's been in a bit of a fight there. So, this parcel, taking care with the craft knife, not to get that nose again, because hey, he is doesn't want two cuts. So this is definitely a box. I can tell that from the feel of it. No, feet off, thank you. But it's definitely been wrapped up well in brown paper. Which I quite like, you know, nothing quite having a parcel in brown paper. So I'm having to move it around because he wants to get his nose in, and I don't want him to because I don't want him getting cut. Let's just cut there. He's most insistent about taking interest. When he's off in he's wandered off in boredom. So here we go. Okay, red box. What we've got, and this is a copy of Model Middle Earth role playing. Get that copy out of the paper, so let me soon take a look there before I fully unbox it. So a bit more action with the craft knife. In fact, so much action, I'm going to need another slug of tea. Nice hot cup of tea. Almost there. So this is quite a battered copy, but here we go. Middle Earth role-playing, the role-playing game of J.R.R. Tolkien's world, based on The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, perfect for seasoned players as well as those who have never experienced the thrill of fantasy role-playing, from Iron Crown Enterprises. Merp. Now this is going to be the second sort of like printing or edition of this game. Getting hold of a first edition is a little bit difficult and expensive. But here we go. Here's the back. Nice picture of Gollum there. And the role-playing, so all we've got on the back says the role-playing game of Tolkien's world. Role-playing is a type of game which allows a person to assume the role of a character in a living novel. Middle-earth role-playing, MERP for short, provides the structure and framework for role-playing in the greatest fantasy setting of all time, J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth. MERP can be used with a variety of game aids, including a campaign and an adventure guidebook for Middle-earth, the campaign the Middle-earth poster map, the MERP combat screen, ready-to-run modules containing easy-to-play adventures, adventure modules containing specific towns and locales, campaign modules detailing large regions, and Rolemaster Ice's or Iron Crown Enterprises Advanced Role-Playing System, which came out in the same year. This is 1982. So this boxed MERP edition contains the MERP rulebook, an adventure book including solo adventure and a beginning multiplayer adventure with layouts, a layout and chart booklet for layouts for the Troll Shores adventure, 56 full-colour stand-up playing pieces of all the adventure characters. The MERP rulebook contains the components required to play, character development system covering hobbits, elves, dwarves, orcs, trolls, etc. Magic system, simple yet comprehensive. Combat system, realistic, playable. Game master guidelines covering travel, encounters, weather and random events. Creatures and races, covering the major beasts, monsters and people. Sample adventure, a starting adventure set in the Troll Shores. So that's everything in the back, and you can see a picture of it there. So we open up, and what we've got inside is this. Okay, Now I'm holding my fingers there because there are some loose bits in here. So for example, you have that, which is a warrior, and that would go into one of these. And if you have a look, there's some actual stats on the back. I don't know whether you can see, I'll bring that into focus. So that would sort of slot into there like that. I'm not going to force it there, but you would use that on the table like that instead of miniatures. So now the other thing is that this, of course, as you can tell by the additional rule, that this is square bound, not staple bound, which is what the original probably would have been when that came out. And you've got basically the same kind of content on the back, but different layout as on the back of the box set. Inside, I mean, essentially on the cover you've got a nice image of the Fellowship, you know, it's all ready to step forward to go on the road to Mount Doom. So this would have been probably at the end of the Fellowship of the Ring, where Mount Doom is in sight. This is the bit probably where, you know, they're about to where they get to the split. And so inside, we open up with image of Gandalf. We'll go into you know, basically very conventional layout from the period, from the sort of like the early 80s, to going through the details. We've got a role-playing in Tolkien's world, and what is a fantasy role-playing game? A place called Adventuring in Middle-earth, explaining what the game is, what it's about, and oh, sorry, cat. Before we get into a sample fantasy role-playing game. So automatically, okay, here's what role-playing is about, here's what it looks like in actual play. Here's an example of some players actually going through the situation. I can vaguely remember this because this would have been one of the, certainly one of the role-playing games that Games Workshop would have done a UK version of in its famous purple box. Games Workshop did sort of like two purple boxes. One, of course, was for RuneQuest 2nd edition. Again, that would have been 1982 or 1983, something like that. And then they would have done this, I think, sort of like a bit later, with a big box. And I've got a copy of that, and I will do an unboxing with it at some point. So yeah, but here we have, this is I can remember from that rulebook. So excuse the cat's tail, but you know, comes with the territory. Cat, who is not ours, does like his Nook time with me, and we'll get into explanation of the rules, which famously were percentile, but you were rolling and adding your percentile skill to the roll to try and get as high as possible. And here we have the stats defining the character, and this really would have been a sort of like a role-playing game which sort of came out of the Rollmaster aids that were initially arms law, claw law, spell law, that sort of thing, which came out of editions for your D&D campaign before being spun into an actual role-playing game of their own. And as a consequence, you know, they also went after the basically the Middle-earth role-playing game, and they would produce not only this version for many years, leading ultimately to a very nice hardback, which came out in the 90s, and also Middle-earth Adventures, which was a simpler 2d6 based adventure, which I think, you know, gets lost amongst the Middle-earth role-playing games, because there have been several, because this is the first. And then you've got Middle-earth Adventures, you've got the Lord of the Rings role-playing game, which came out from Decipher with regard to the movies, with the films, a bit coincided with shortly after the films, and they also did a Star Trek license. And after that, you have the more recent version, the One Ring, first from Cubicle 7, and then very recently from Free League Publishing. And I'm going to look at that at some point, as well as reviewing this, because I actually do like, as it turns out, I do like role-playing in Middle-earth. It's got a nice background. You can actually adventure in it without impacting the setting too much. you know, without impacting the kind of story. So, there's the wind. I told you it was windy. Let's just put this back down so my hair's all over the place. Come on, out the box. Don't want you in the box. And then, so we've got professions in here. So, scout, warrior, ranger, bard, mage, and animist. Different class professions. Doesn't have a section on basic factors. Does have race and culture. So you actually have quite a lot of cultures, and there's a big list there, or just there. Sorry, there we go. Which includes dwarves, umli, half elves, noldor elves, cinder elves, sylvan elves, hobbits, common orcs, urukai, half orcs, normal trolls, urukai, half trolls, and then managed cultures and races: Bjornings, Black Nororians, Corsairs, Dorwin Rim, Dunedain, Dunlendings, Easterlings, Haradrim, Lossouth, Rohirrim, rural men, urban men, Veriags, woodsmen, and Wozers. So lots of options there. And then we get into the skills, and you know, so we have for weapon skills: one-handed edges, one-handed concussion, two-handed, pole arms, thrown, missile, general skills. So it's quite it is primarily it's a class and skill profession game. And you know, you remember this is 82, so the you know, D&D didn't really have skills or anything like that, but this did. So we've got experience and advancing levels, a spell point table, a kill point table. This is essentially the amount of experience points you're going to get per action. Again, that's continuing the guide to experience, but you've really got some nice illustrations here, which would have been drawn presumably from sort of like the wider Tolkien estate and the artwork they had. And then we have creating and actually this is creating and molding a character. This is creating a current character here. Here we get into that. And these are fantastic illustrations. You just wish that obviously this was all in colour, because there's clearly this original artwork was in colour. And we got choosing culture and race, and here we've also got the beginnings of a character generation, and we go through various stages. So you're going to get base skills for your race, and then adolescent skill development. So step-by-step character generation. And then you get into choosing a profession and background options and details. So you do get quite a rounded character, you know, just from glancing through this from the base rules. And really we haven't covered very much in here. That's just the 35th page. And once you've chosen your profession, you've got apprentice skill development as well. And that's when, at that point, you know, where you get to where you get to begin to play, and you're continuing here the character generation. And it does infamously include things like armor skills. So you actually your ability to move and maneuver in things like no armor, softer, rigid leather, chain, and plate actually matters. You are actually rolling for that when you maneuver. And then now we get on to the Game Master section, presenting the setting and the difference between civilized areas, countryside, adventure sites, NPCs, general populace, and you know, whether they are basically opposed to the player characters or they might be allies. Talking about plots and politics and typical adventures, just giving a general sort of introduction to them at this stage. So I've got a few magic items listed here. So things like Staff of Firebolts, Rod of Water Bolts, Wand of Shock Bolts, Wand of Calm 2, Dagger with daily 2 Levitate spell, Ring with daily 2 Levitate spell, Potion of Haste. I mean, these do feel very much like they're out of Dungeons and Dragons rather than Middle-earth role-playing game. They do feel at odds. You know, I mean, I am obviously more recently used to playing the One Ring, where the idea that you get a magical item is almost unheard of. And I'm going to action in the strategic environment, so whether that's in the civilized areas, in the countryside, scouting the countryside, evasion and hiding, searching the herbs, things that you're going to do out in the wilderness. Because one of the features of, it's not really a feature, it's more a feature of a game like the One Ring, is movement between civilized locales, towns and cities, and it's the journey that matters. And then we switch to the tactical environment, so you can see the elements of that here, but it's not as well developed. Then we get on to actually attacking, making maneuvers. So again, quite a lot of text to go through. It's a relatively slim rule book, 126 pages. And then we've got the attack results. So not much necessary to see here, but there's a lot to go through. Then we have, we go on to spell lists, tables and record sheets. And we have lists of spells. You've got physical enhancement and essence hand spells. So, you know, you've got spells are usually typically classed into different types, and then there's 10 spells per grouping. So you're covering illusions, unbarring ways, spell ways, essence ways, spirit magic, essence perceptions. And I mean, this is all fine back in the 1980s, but we don't necessarily think of, the Middle Earth as being somewhere being magical in terms of personal magic, or at least there not being a lot of it. We also have earth law, ice law, light law, lofty bridge, water law, wind law, living chants. Again, lots of spells, and I mean, we are more used to the One Ring these days, where, you know, you don't have these huge lists of spells, and nobody is an inherent magic user. So yeah, you've got pages and pages of spells, all of them given sort of like you know, a simple 1 or 2 line description. But you know, there are things in here like plant mastery and animal mastery, which, and I've got also the unbarring, which do feel in keeping with the setting. I mean, Radagast the Brown would know animal ways, Gandalf might know plant ways, as everybody knows unbarring. And then we get into the fun. And the fun is the tactical and combat tables. So we've got lots of tables. So we start off with a, you know, there's a critical hit, critical fumble table. And we've got weapon statistics and tables for each of the weapon types. And these days almost you don't have big tables like that, but you know, they were a feature. And then we have the critical hit tables for each of the different weapon types. So thus you have critical table 1, crush critical table 2, slash critical table 3, puncture critical table, critical table 4, unbalancing critical table, and so on. They're all there. You know, combat can get quite detailed and nasty and entertaining. We also have the same thing for spells and their effects, so that's heat, cold, electricity, impact critical tables. It just seems to come a little bit too much in a way. And then we have static maneuver tables, almost like, you know, you're playing a war game. Not, oh okay, you don't want my hat, what, okay, sorry, I'll just give you a bit of a fuss. Sorry about that. He's basically telling me, you know, I'm talking too much, not paying him enough attention. What else have we got? And then we've got typical, these are tables for NPCs. If you don't like tables, this is definitely not a game for you. Herbs, poisons, again, that's actually obviously going to be gaming useful, because you are going to be searching for herbs, so on, out in the wilderness, because they are the main means of, you know, spicing up your, you know, I say spicing up, you're basically improving your cooking, and of course of tending to your wounds and your ailments. And, then treasure tables, including a magic item chart. Character sheet, which somebody has nicely filled in. Let's see what else we got in here. This is just the first book, of course. Experience record sheet for your character, blank sheet for when you're bringing out miniatures, and then we finally get onto the race descriptions here at the back, not at the front where they might have been needed. So there's a bit of flipping when it comes to creating your character. So descriptions here of dwarves and Umli. I don't even know what an Umli is. Umli live in the far north of the north central Middle Earth, east of the Lothoth. They're a race of short folk who happen to have formed an ancient union of men and dwarves. Legends call them the half-dwarves. Elves of various types, including half-elves. Then we get on to hobbits, and you have the difference between stores and fellowhides and harfoots. And men, and the various different cultures you have available of them. So yeah, then we get on to orcs and normal trolls and the like, and we have creature descriptions of some of the creatures that the player characters might encounter, or certainly don't want to. So balrogs, dragons, eagles, ents, fell beasts, krakens, spiders, werewolves, wargs, and the like. And we have a definitely a sample game environment, which is the Inn at Last Bridge. So basically a little stop-off point, classic tavern. And then out to the countryside, where you'll have, essentially you'll go out and I believe there's a kidnap case. You have to go and rescue a little girl who is missing, and explore the 4 towers of a castle. Let's say long time since I've looked at this, and then even investigate below the keep. So decent little adventure as I recall. Be interesting to play this again. And we have the options here for expanding Merc with Rollmaster and converting characters from Merc to Rollmaster, so you can add even more detail should you so desire. And then interesting, we have converting Merc and Fantasy Hero stats. Okay, basically a bit of crossover between different publishers too. So what else have we got in? That's the core rulebook. So after all that, more tea. And below that we have. This is where we get to first. I didn't see this first, but hey, I'm doing it backwards because I'm going down through the box. So, an introduction to fantasy role playing. What's contained in this box? This introduces the role playing game. And it's got a title here. I didn't know this. It's called the Quest Game System. So, learn something new every day. And this explains how the system works, how fighting works, casting spells, and adventure. And here we have, you have got a pre-created character. So let's see what it is. It's, let's see, blah, 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 blah. You make critical, okay. Doesn't actually see what race it is. Name is Dana, so I'm going to go, it's probably human, and you go through a little solo adventure. which has well, 70, 75, 76 entries, and then we've got a beginning multiplayer adventure. So you actually got, basically, if you several parts, you've got sample adventurers in here, all ready to play, and then they've got the tale itself, which takes you out into the wilderness. The adventure, I think, is somewhere called the Loons of Longfell, beside the Troll Shores and just north of the river Bruinen. So here's the adventure. I've got a better map there. My NPC is going to give you all the details. More NPCs. Before we get into, there's the NPC's house. And the actual adventuring site. The task, how to involve the characters. So you're basically kind of building up to actually really building up to the plot rather than beginning straight up front, and a character sheet on the back. And below that I have MERP cardboard character display guidelines. So there's a guide to putting all these miniatures there, and this is what they actually look like. Okay, and you cut those out and put them in the stands. And this, so you've got, these are the maps that you would use for the adventure, and with those standees. So you've got the troll layer for the adventure in the core book. So these are really quite nice maps. You know, put these on the table and you move your miniatures around. Yeah, these still stand up. I mean, here's the map of the castle in the woods, which is the main adventuring site for the adventure in the book. So yeah, pretty decent overall. And yeah, here's the chambers under the castle. So that's the map book. Okay, and then underneath that, I think that's it. Although I do have a couple of extras here. I have this is from White Dwarf, because I can tell from the layout and style somebody's photocopied this and put this in back in the day. And this is A Man in His World, influence of J.R. Tolkien on the role-playing. Yes, out of the box, please, cat. By Graham Stablehurst, who is basically wrote a lot for White Dwarf and TSR back in the day. So we've got a quick article introducing the material. This really is this may well have come from White Dwarf. It might have come from the Winter Games Good Guide, but I think it's probably White Dwarf. I can't remember which issue it is, but this introduces you to MERP, or certainly the White Dwarf readers to MERP, and gives you a brief overlook at the support material. I'll basically introduce you to Tolkien and a brief look at the support material for the Middle-earth role-playing game, which you can see there and there. And there are an awful lot of supplements for it published over the years. Some of them very expensive to collect now. But yeah, since this would have come out at the time, I would suspect, when Games Workshop did its own version of this box set. So, you know, here's a bit of advertising, you know, to go with the, to go with our release, you know. So I just tidy these bits up here so I can put everything back in the box, because it is quite a bit, and then so this goes back Tolkien. So yeah, this is all very interesting box set, and I think this one is, as I say, not the 1982 version, unfortunately, but it is a version which I will certainly be digging into and giving a review. Middle Earth role playing from Iron Crown Enterprises, published in 1982. Be interesting to see what this is like. I mean, not necessarily in comparison to the One Ring, because it's not a fair comparison, because you know the two designs are decades apart, and really in terms of thinking about what a role-playing game looks like and plays like, and how theme is handled in individual issues. So anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this unboxing. If you have, please click the like button down below. And if you've got any comments or feedback, I appreciate you posting those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings in the Nook, where you will see me out here with a box or a game which I will unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, in this case 30 minutes, all of course accompanied by a cat who is not ours, and a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do hit that subscribe button. Thanks again for watching. We'll be back again soon with another unboxing of the Nook. Bye for now.